Welcome everyone to our 18th Lake Stewardship Workshop and our second session on community emergency preparedness. As you know, I'm Jim Irwin, Chair of the Rocky Mountain Biosphere Reserve. I'll be hosting tonight's workshop, and Dennis Hodgson and Daryl Kynes will be assisting. To begin, I'd like to acknowledge that the Rocky Mountain Biosphere Reserve is in Treaty 2 and 4 territories of the Anishinaabe people, and say that we respect and share their all-important teachings that water is a sacred gift, essential for all life. Since 1986, Rocky Mountain Biosphere Reserve has been bringing people together to share their knowledge for the well-being of our communities. In this respect, we're pleased to have Sean Frey participate again and continue on the topic of wildfires and community emergency preparedness, as we continue to explore ways to better safeguard our communities. Sean is a Geomatics mapping coordinator for Riding Mountain National Park, FireSmart coordinator for the RM of Harrison Park, and the deputy chief of the Onanole Fire Department. Sean will be building on his presentations from last week in his presentation tonight, which is entitled Filling the Gaps for Emergency Response Mapping. Sean?
Thanks, Jim, and everyone coordinating for inviting me back. I'm glad to follow up on some of the presentations I did last week, I guess it was, a whole week ago now. As mentioned earlier, if you have questions as we go along, please feel free to intervene. It's a little bit less formal. I don't have prepared slides tonight. But what I'd like to do is look at the process of filling some of these gaps for emergency planning. And I managed to track down a few resources that will help with this. In discussion with members of the biosphere on the last call, we talked about where the greatest opportunities would be, particularly for RMs in the biosphere, and how they can get their information up there. So I thought what we'd do tonight, once you can see my screen, is look at some of the tools and processes that you would use to update these highly detailed maps, and how some of these tools work in a little more detail. I did a quick demo last time and showed you quickly how to add a building and a driveway, something similar to this here. And I thought we'd work around Sandy Lake because I don't think any of the addresses have been put in yet. As I zoom in here, you can see the buildings are in. I used a tool called, which is a little more detailed, called Java OpenStreetMap Editor, or JOSM it's called. And I know Daryl has taken a peek into it. It's a little more complicated. I'd only recommend that tool for people that have mapping experience or kind of fairly adept at using new tools with lots of buttons, whistles and buttons, if you will. The two tools I'm going to demonstrate most tonight is just the in-browser. It's called the ID editor, and it's a really quick and easy way to edit. And if we have time and people are interested, I just tried to link my phone in Zoom, and I could demo an app that you can run on your phone and tag for addressing. So and that won't take as long, but I can give you a brief tour of that tool as well. To edit an OpenStreetMap, if you just Google OpenStreetMap, it'll come up and you'll see a map of the world, if you will. You won't see my name up here because you can create a free login to be able to edit. If you're just browsing, anybody can browse OpenStreetMap. It's as a refresher for those who may not have participated in last week's session. OpenStreetMap is sort of the Wikipedia of in the map world, it's created from data by volunteers, and it started pretty much in Europe, out of England, and then spread kind of like wildfire around the world. And ironically, the places where the data is most detailed is in disaster-prone areas of the world where massive volunteers help out to update the data. In some parts of the world, like here, there is some data, but there's obviously some of the big gaps. So that's the theme of tonight, is filling in some of these gaps. Much of the data that's on here was imported from NRCan topographic maps, and they're just not quite to the level of detail that you might find in other areas that have been mapped, particularly in the cities like Winnipeg or Brandon, where they have very high resolution imagery and LiDAR to populate the maps. But one of the benefits of OpenStreetMap is a lot of companies have gotten behind it. So they are providing high-res imagery to help people add features into OpenStreetMap from imagery. So the first thing you'd want to do if you found a spot, then let's say Daryl was saying there's some work to be done here along, I forget even the name of this road now, but I can go into edit mode by clicking this button up here. And you can see it'll come up with the data and the buildings. As I move over them, they kind of flash up to show that I can select them. If I select an object, and most times when you select an object, you want to select it on the edge. You can see over here on the left, I just have to move your lovely faces around here. It has the feature type. So anything that's created in OpenStreetMap gets a feature type, and you can select from any number of things, whether it's a cabin. This might be a cabin, I'm not sure. And if you're not sure, building is the most common type for a building. If you do know if it's a house or a garage or something else, the more detail, the better. Then in terms of emergency planning, if we know this is the house, then the house is what should have the address. Let's see if this one does have any address. So this building, I think it's pretty clear this is the house, and this is probably the garage. So if I wanted to change that to a house, I could. And if I know the address, then I can put it in here and which street it's facing onto. I've gone through most of Sandy Lake and added a lot of these, so they should be reasonably up to date, unless the buildings are newer than this imagery, which in my estimation is about 2 or 3 years old. Another way, if a community is really keen to get their latest data in, it's possible now to fly with a drone and have it stitched together to create imagery that you can digitize off of, but then you'd need to use that more advanced tool. But yeah, so this is what we have to work with. You can see I've even put in the campground, and these are just driveways, which seem to make sense, and they can even be labeled with a name for each of them. If somebody wanted to do the Lands Campground and add all the site numbers onto them. And so when you're looking at editing, there's 3 main types of objects that you'll be adding onto the map. Points. So if you want to add restaurants or monuments or things that have a single point feature, like this RV dump station, for example, then that's when you would use a point. Lines are points that are connected into a group of, they're called vertices, or basically a line is point to point to point. And you can see when I select this line that it's tagged as a service road. And if I need to adjust it at all, I can grab any of the nodes and fine tune them. The same with buildings. So you can modify any of those features by using the nodes or the vertices that describe those objects. This is another type of area. So this is a playground, and one of the neat features with buildings and is if you right click, you can turn them into circles or make them square. That helps get them all nice and tidy and most accurate, because most buildings are square, unless it's not square. In some cases it won't be. But if you're marking grain silos or that sort of thing, that circular feature is quite handy, and maybe we'll do a farm site to see how that works. Let's find a spot that needs some editing. Let's make a new site here. This one probably hasn't. Okay, so here I've got a farm site, and I can see it has a shed, a house, a garage by the looks of it, and it's not on the map currently. So I want to add it on. So you can start by adding the buildings, but for us, the buildings are the main priority. If only the buildings got added, that would be something for us. If some things are in your way, like this forested area, you can also update them. It's just an area. So if the size of forest changes, you can move it around. One of the neat things that you can do is if you need to add, say you want to capture this bit of forest, you can, if you click in, left clicking the vertice and the halfway point, it'll add a new one. So that will give you the option to expand that area. So I've just updated the forest area. If you have obsessive compulsive disorder about fixing things like my wife and I do, then you might find yourself spending your whole life adjusting forested areas in the RM. So try to avoid that, like I just didn't there. Right, so I'm going to add a new area. You can see a lot of times when you hover over, it may give you an option for a shortcut. So you can press the number 3 key to start making an area. And you just click on the corners of the building and double click to finish. And I've created a building. So I'll pick that building. It's probably a shed. If you know this farmyard, you could even say that that's a shed. I'm going to then make it square.
Okay, the farmyard you're looking at is Larry Huslak's, and I believe that's sort of a shed where he would probably feed his cattle.
Okay, so I can go shed or shelter. If it's a shelter.
Cattle shelter, yeah.
Yeah, I think you can even say the type. So livestock. Wildlife hide, no. Cattle. If you're not sure, it doesn't have to be exact. Shelter is probably good enough. If you know it's a shelter or a shed, that's good. Then we know there's probably not people associated with that. If there's animals associated with it, that might be good to know. We actually recently had a barn fire where we had to manage animal welfare. So if we have a fire coming towards it and we know there's could be animals associated with it, that could be important. But anyway, I can let people on the ground that know this better update some of those things. But now that it's created, you can tag it and describe it in more detail. It still keeps it as a building. As you can see, one of the tags is that it's a building, but it further describes it as a shelter. One of the things I find if I can't find quite the right tag is you can also Google, just go OpenStreetMap and the type of thing that you think it is, and that it might have a slightly different name describing it, but that'll get you in the right ballpark anyway. Okay, so we've added the shed. We'll add the garage here. This looks like a garage for sure. Although there's a garage off the house as well. So I just use the 3 key to create a new area. Double click. And now I can call that a garage. And I think it's just the Q key, that's the shortcut to make it square. You can see it just squared it off there nicely. I see there's even a small shed right next to it. You can add that. And that's a shed. If you need to move it, you can right click and go move. That'll let you adjust it. One thing to try to avoid is if you get too close to another building, it might try to snap to it. Like I just did here, and you can see now it's joined to the other building. You usually want to avoid that if you can. It usually comes up as an error. There is an undo. Where is undo here? Is it hiding? Oh yeah, up in the top right here is an undo. And so I can undo that snapping I just did there. Make sense? This one was already in there. You can see it was from the Manitoba Land Initiative. So some buildings have been automatically dumped in. I'm not sure why only this building was there, if it predated all the other buildings or not, or it's just the only one that was detected by their effort. In this case, I can just adjust it slightly. It looks like it's about the right size. If I need to adjust the size, I can make it a little bigger. And you can see it still keeps those tags for that building, even though I'm adjusting it. All right, and then this building, it was probably, it looks like about the size of a shipping container, which is probably no longer there. It's W, yeah, if you hit W, it turns it into a wireframe, so it makes it a little thinner so you can see what's underneath. In this case, that doesn't look like it's there anymore, so I can delete it. And now I'm going to add this house in here. So I'll click area. And that's a house. All right. And this looks like another, it looks like a equipment shed. Sometimes the shadows on the imagery are quite helpful. You can give you an idea if it's a building or not. If this is pretty good imagery, I can see even the trucks and everything. So there's not a lot of confusion about what that is. And then now these are grain silos. You can see the shadow of them, and they're circular. So to do a circular object, I'll click area again, and this time I'm only going to use 3 points on the outside of the object, and then I'm going to choose what is this again? Green. I could just do building. And now if I push the O key, it'll turn it into a circle. And I can also oops, copy it and paste more of them as needed. Those look a little big, don't they? All right, so there's the green. Let's just check to see grain storage. Oh, that's OpenStreetMap. Silo, okay, they tag it as a silo. Building. All right. Let's see if they have that in here. Oh yeah, silo. There we go. I wonder if I can do a whole bunch at the same time. If you hold shift and click on them, you might be able to change them all to a silo. There. There we go. So all the silos are put in there. All right, so I've pretty much finished the yard site for buildings. Now I want to put in the driveways, and this is one of those tricky bits where now the buildings are in, how do we get the fire trucks there? And as I was saying before, the province looks after this highway and the municipality looks after all the tertiary grid roads, but this is a private road. And so nobody kind of has these on any maps. But we can see it here. So we're going to put this driveway in. So we're going to make a line now. Now, the important thing with roads is that they connect to other roads. So that unlike the buildings where you don't want them to click together, you want to add it onto the road it's joining to. This one's actually been labeled as Road 117, which is good. And now I'm going to click along the length of it. You add a few more points on the corners so it goes a little smoother. And then I'm going to come back out this side. If you need to, you can zoom in and out with the zoom wheel as you're doing it. And if you need to drag, you just click and drag with that same left button. And then when you are finished your line, you can double click and it will highlight your line, ask you what that is. These are recently used, so they might not automatically come up, so you can start typing driveway. But and if you're not sure about a feature, there's an info key beside here, which describes kind of what that feature is. So a driveway leads to a residence or business. And so that's the driveway. Now, I had considered, because a lot of these rural addressing will actually identify, well, the signpost will actually be out where it meets the highway. Whether or not you could actually name that driveway with the number and it will show up. But so far I've been putting the addressing on the house because that's ultimately where we end up going to as a priority. So, but there's two ways, I guess, you could do that, and you can decide for your area. I'm not sure how Sandy Lake in this response area prefer it, but or you could have both, I imagine. Now, I did find some resources. So we're talking about, well, how will we know what this address is? And there is a municipality Harrison Park civic address atlas. I'm not sure if other RMs in the Biosphere Reserve have a copy of this. It's available to the fire departments, and they can probably, it says it's copyrighted to the RM, so I imagine they can get other copies to people that are interested in updating these addresses. And so it has different map indexes, and we have the Sandy Lake area. So I can see, if I go back to this map, where am I? If I zoom out a little bit and get an idea where I am. So this is 117, off of 117 and 45. So there's 117. And 45, it doesn't have that. That would be right in here. So it has the next civic address south on 117. So I probably need map 5E, which I did not scan. I'm just going to quickly look here. Map 5E. Okay, so it's 116,114 is the address there. And it looks like it comes off of, they're using the one that comes off Highway 45. So that's the other tricky bit. And when we have a address that comes off of two different roads, which one's the main driveway? So they're saying it's off of 45. So I would click on the house and put the address as 116. What did I say? 114. Like that. And choose Provincial Trunk Highway 45 as the street. And you could say that's in Sandy Lake. If you think it's, this was one question I had for Chad, was whether or not houses that are kind of outside of town are associated with a specific town, or how, if you're halfway between two towns, which town does it go to? But as long as you have this address and the street, that will be enough for us to find that. So, all right, so I've added the buildings, the road, and you can see up here, I've made 21 different changes, and you kind of, it'll start to change color if you get more and more changes without saving them. So it's a good idea once in a while to save your changes. So I'll go through that process here now. So I can hit save. I'm going to say added buildings. Near Sandy Lake. And for sources, which are good to have, I use the Maxar imagery and local knowledge. You could even cite the RM Harrison Park if you want for the addressing. And then I can hit upload. And now that data has been added into the global database. And once it's indexed in, when somebody goes into OpenStreetMap and looks for that address, it will point them to that building, and we can route to it following whichever driveway makes the most sense from the fire hall. If we're coming to assist Sandy Lake with a fire on that property, because we're mutual aid partners in the same RM. Other thing you'll notice, if you zoom out too far, it'll say zoom into edit. So it wants you to have as much detail as possible while you're doing editing. And yeah. So looking at.
I would show them what happens when you make an error. It doesn't like when you say it.
Oh, okay. My wife, who's really gotten into editing in OpenStreetMap, wants to point out what happens if you make an error and try to save it. So I'll show you something interesting with streams, because you can see streams have a direction, and they are a little bit different when you put a road feature across them. I'm trying to find one here. But if you try to save one without identifying how you get a road across the stream, it will give you an error.
Sean, if you want to find something to edit that needs to be added, there's a stream that goes through the golf course. It's not on there.
Okay, very good. Let's go to the golf course here.
Okay, it's you can
right through the middle here.
No, it's yeah. Zoom in a little bit more. Oh, all right. And then show me something north, a bit north, farther north.
Yeah, it looks like there is a drainage here, right?
Yes, that's correct. That's it.
Okay. Yeah, I could see it coming up here. It looks like there's some bridges across it.
They're culverts.
For the culverts? Okay. All right, so I'll show you how to add. Well, that's the other thing you can add is the fairways and greens and tee boxes for golf courses. If you want to add your own golf course maps, it has all those features in there that you can tag. But let's add this stream in. So for the stream, we're going to start it.
Further south, close to the old railway bit.
Yeah, so we're
There we
here.
go. Yeah, somewhere in there.
All right, so it's going to come through here. And I can see the channel here. Looks like another stream comes in from this side too.
There is. Let's do the main one first, and then you can do the other one.
All right, so yeah, we're going to get an issue here.
So, okay, back up a little bit. Yeah, right there. There's a culvert under the
Okay.
road.
And it goes through to here.
To the right. It goes through the right further.
Oh, to the right. Okay.
Yeah.
Over here. And in between,
Over there.
in between
Yeah.
these houses to the lake.
That's correct.
All right, so I'll join it up to the lake so that it goes, and I can adjust this over here. All right. So I'm going to call this a stream. Now you see it's come up with an issue. And it's crossing this residential road and doesn't know what to do about that. So, and you just told me it's a culvert. So I'm going to add a tunnel, and it automatically puts it in underneath the road. You can also segment the road and put a bridge in. So if that's the option, or if it's a level crossing that you just drive through, then it'll add a ford. So it'll put a node right where the two intersect. And then it will call that point a ford. So this is getting a little more complicated, but if you're into more of this editing, you can do these fine-tune adjustments for that kind of stuff. And this would actually be quite helpful for the municipality knowing where all these culverts are, because and if this is an intermittent stream, you can also identify that. There's a tag down here. So if it's not running all the time, you know it dries up sometimes of the year. Yeah, so here's you can see this looks like the green for the golf course. So if you want to add in some features like that, quite simple.
That's the fifth green.
Golf green. Putting green, there you go. Fifth green.
Yep.
All right. Then you want to put this this bunker in.
Sure.
Bunker.
Might be a
Sand
sand
trap.
trap.
There you go, sand trap. And you could do the fairways and all that stuff too. So.
And do you want to put in that other stream? You have to.
Oh yeah. So to join up. So you see the stream. If I did it the wrong direction, you can also.
That's the
there's
correct.
a reverse.
Oh,
So if you decided you went the wrong way, I think there are some imagery too. Let's see. Oh, they don't have the Esri topo. Is there Canada? Oh yeah, Canvec. So if you're not sure about the direction of the stream, if you switch to Canvec, it'll probably have contour lines. It might be really slow. Yeah, here, the Canvec data, it's not the greatest, but you can see there's contour lines. No, maybe not. Yeah, it doesn't seem to be working. Let's try the topographic. No, it's not high enough scale. Anyway, strike that. The Esri does have a topo layer too. I'm surprised they haven't added that in here yet. But there are some layers that you can get that will show topography, so you can see which way the streams would go. Let's just go back to Maxar here. We're going to add in this other stream. You can see, and if you put in the golf paths, which you can too, you can add trails and paths. I was talking to somebody from Ericsson today. He has GPS tracks. You can upload GPS traces up here, and then you can trace along them. So if you can't really see the trails on the imagery because of trees or whatnot, but here you can see the golf tracks, and if you know where they are, you can probably digitize them. So I don't know, where's that one started? Right about here?
Yeah, go south. Go south.
South more?
Yeah, a bit more. Okay, you see that path where the golf carts go? Yeah, that one. It's to the right a little bit. Yeah, and
Over
it,
here?
yeah, it's in the trees is where there's a culvert. So
Okay,
yeah, you
so
can start, no. Go back.
No?
Well, okay, that's good practice. Yeah, you can just get up to where you can see the stream, and then I'll fix it later.
Okay. Fair enough.
You're going left a bit here. Or
Yeah, right. Yeah, I was straying a bit left, you were saying?
it's okay.
See, this is exactly why somebody with intimate local knowledge is the best person to be able to update these maps and features, because you guys probably live on this place once in a,
Well, Dennis,
half the year.
I just live beside it.
Or if you're not sure, you can go out and check, right? So
That's right.
and here I can show you the app after. You could even have it in your hand while you're out there, and while you're putting on the 5th green, you decide, oh, we should actually add that other sand trap. You can do that live, right, while you're out there. As long as, well, Sandy Lake, I understand, doesn't have the greatest data coverage, but all right. So we
Did
added.
you go do that street that was to the west along Cernic, further from?
Okay, yeah. So we want to know the name of this street.
Yeah, that's called Beach Road East.
Beach Road East.
Yeah, that part. Just say Beach Road for now.
Oops. I just have to learn how to type here.
And what they've done is they've
Is there an east and a west? Because I can
There
call
is.
it all east, and then I'll show you how to split it. Okay, so
yeah, this one this you can see the where the road changes, right?
at this junction here.
Yes, right there. And there is no longer a road that goes straight through.
Sorry, you cut out there. Just
The road that you're on there stops at that point where and it turns and it joins on to South Shore Drive.
okay. All right, so I want to split it here.
Yeah.
So I will split it. And if I right click on here, I think I can add, or no, maybe I have to disconnect it first. Oops, I disconnected the wrong thing. Yeah, so see, it's now disconnected.
Yeah.
I'll just tuck this over here temporarily. And I want to continue this on around the corner and connect it to South Shore Drive. Is that right?
That's correct. And
Right,
then,
so now I need
then
to,
those 2 driveways or 3 driveways, they would still be attached to Beach Road East.
oh, they are.
Yeah.
So should I come out further up then? It looks
No,
like
no,
you can access all the way through here across both
Yeah,
roads.
Yeah, I don't know that there
This
is
is confusing.
actually. I don't know that there's actually a connection going down to the lake there. That might be sort of part of that guy's driveway. Don't connect those 2.
Oh, don't? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, they're different levels.
You're going to get rid of the street that's to the left. It's going to go further west, and I'll show you where the street ends up. A little bit further.
Oh, here. Okay.
Yes. And so that's where
So,
Beach Road West comes on, and then you're going to have to get rid of the stuff in the middle. So you'll have to split it.
okay, so I'm going to split it here and disconnect it. So now I've got an orphan, and it gives me an error here. It says it's not connected to anything. So that's good to know. And here I'm going to connect that here and add that in there. And this is Beach Road West.
Yeah. And now you have to get rid of the strip in the middle and disconnect the driveways, I guess. The other guys have driveways that come off of South Shore Drive.
Okay, so these all come off South Shore Drive.
Yes.
except for those three that we were talking about that come off of.
Yeah, I think the
this road
two of
east.
them, I think two of them are driveways, but the other one is a path.
I'm just going to delete this one. Oh, maybe I can't because it's connected to these. Well, let's just get rid of these for a moment. Delete that picture.
Must be something else connected.
No. It's weird. Nodes, it worked, but I couldn't delete the whole feature for some reason. But okay.
So now
All
you
right.
have
So
two driveways to put in.
all right. So I'll add these two driveways like that. It's a driveway.
And you could put a path in if you wanted.
There's a path.
Yeah, that's a path.
Oh, I see. This is a path.
No. Between the two houses, the last house that is a driveway, that has a driveway, I think that's a path down to the lake.
Does it connect in here?
I kind of think you can get through there, but I'm not positive. I think you can.
All right. So I'm going to add a path that goes down to the lake.
We'll fix it if it isn't.
All right, so this is a path. Oh, there's path right there. Yeah, and you can even say if it's a what surface it is, the width. If you're adding roads and things too, if that's important to you. But there's a path. Okay.
And then all of these, we can do this ourselves. Each of those has.
Yeah, you can add in the driveways. That looks interesting. Yeah. So this is where local knowledge would come in handy because to me, that looks like a whole bunch of cars piled up all over the place. And I wouldn't be sure where you were going to try to get in there. You can see our challenges with, imagine you're trying to get a pumper in somewhat proximity to some of these buildings to. The other thing we can add in this is fire hydrants. So what type of feature would that be?
Water.
But in terms of point line or area.
Ought to be a point.
Yeah. So if you knew, for example, there was a hydrant here.
And there isn't.
There are a few around Sandy Lake.
Well, hopefully we'll have a lot more on that street, but there
Yeah.
aren't any right now.
So that's how you would add a hydrant if you knew there was one there, which would also be very helpful to your fire department. So that we're not trying to think about where is there one around here.
Okay, so Beach Road, yeah, Beach Road West, right? That's right. Okay.
Yeah. Makes sense?
The other issue along there, Sean, too, are some of those houses don't have the right numbers on them. The odd one on South Shore.
Oh yeah, they don't.
No.
Oh, like the on the buildings themselves, you mean, or?
Right.
Yes, well, and that's I raised that in social media since last week because I went out biking on the weekend and looked at some new areas in Onanole, and there are whole swaths of new developments that don't have any building addresses. And I was talking to some of the residents there and saying, well, in the event of emergency, if you had a fire tonight and you called 911, how would you describe where your house is so we could come to it? And they had some very thoughtful moments while they. It might be the lot for the development, but who has the lot map for that? Nobody. So I put out a plea to our community for building owners to check your emergency addressing and make sure it's visible from the road, because a lot of times too people put up their addressing and then their landscaping trees grow up and you can't see it. So. And in fact, I'm kind of guilty. I'm going to move my post up further because my trees have grown up. So I'm going to be listening to my own advice, even though most people know where I live because I'm on the department. It's still good to model that kind of behavior. And then maybe I'm not around and there's a bunch of people on the department that have never been to my place. So, and the nice thing too is that you can see when you made a mistake, like I put the wrong letter on for west, I can just go back and highlight that and update the tags. So
If you want to go
back to Beach Road East, Sean, just go back to East Road East for a second, because there is an area there that I don't know if it's designated. You stop about the middle, you can see a bush. You see that little street that goes in off of Beach Road towards the lake?
oh, here, this one?
Yeah, right there. Yeah, that little street, we don't know whether it has an official name. It goes by Beach Road, but some say it's called Beach or East Bay.
Oh,
And so I think a fire truck, if you knew where you're going, you would get to it, but otherwise that's kind of an unknown.
okay. So
People been here for a while don't even know that a street exists. And it doesn't go all the way through.
So it's just a little turnaround in there. If I don't know,
Basically.
looks like it'd be pretty tight to try to turn a pumper around in there. Although we'd probably be back into somebody's driveway and back out.
Yeah, you'd have to do that. Yeah.
Yeah. So if it's not a driveway and this is actually a residential road, you can do residential.
And there's a house to the left, just a minute, sorry. To the left on your drawing, just beside that road that goes in, there's another.
Over here?
No, further south.
Oh, right here.
Yeah.
There's another house in there.
Yeah.
So we can add that in.
There's two houses on the same lot.
Like that.
Yeah, it's probably over closer to the turn in there.
Like this.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, you guys can adjust the size or.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll do that.
All right.
You can put in our watercraft inspection station if you wish.
All right, let's do that. Where's that over here?
To the west, yeah, along the, there we go. You can see the two docks. Our
Yep.
building is just right on the shoreline, just north of where your cursor is.
Up right here.
Yeah.
Is that a building or?
Yes, it is.
Okay. So we'll add that building. All right. So we've labeled it. Now
It doesn't have an address.
it doesn't.
No.
Well, that's okay though, because okay, I'm just going to hit save again and added features around Sandy Lake. I'm going to put my sources again as Maxar imagery and local knowledge. Thanks to you, gentlemen. You could even have social community map nights with your community doing exactly what we're doing here. And somebody who's adept at this goes along and updates it. So now if I go back to OpenStreetMap, you'll see it'll take a little while before, if I refresh, before they'll start to show up. It might take a day or two before it, because these are all tiles in a layer, and then it gets updated over time. And you also have to refresh your cache. But if I query the features here, nearby features, you can see the watercraft inspection station comes up, and now actually the link to that particular building is a URL. So if you're discussing that building with your community and you want to talk about it specifically, you can just send them this link and it will bring it right up in just OpenStreetMap. You can see who changed it, which version it is, if there's any other tags associated, and even it shows the nodes that define what the building is, like it has the coordinates. So you can even see the latitude and longitude of the building corners, if you will. So, yeah. And that will let you search for it too, I would think, but sometimes it takes a while for the search to index any new stuff that's put in the database. So but this is what the public will see after you're finished all your hard work. And once it's updated, well, you can see already the trail and the beach road have started to refresh. As more people start to look at it too, that updates the priority for the caching. So then it'll get updated.
Yeah, let's see if my building number is in.
The fifth green's there.
Yeah.
Oh, is this your building number you just added, number 37?
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. So yeah, and so in this municipal map, I also have some of the civics addresses. So let's look at this Birchview area. Get it the right way around here. So let's go up to Montana Bay, for example. Or do you guys think you have enough to go on here? I'll just, this is the area I think it is. Yeah, so that's Montana Bay. Montana. So I didn't have any of this data when I was editing some of this area. I haven't added obviously all the buildings either, because yeah, there are a few up here. It looks like some of these connect and they don't connect on even the municipal map. So you can tell, you can compare the municipal maps to some of these others. So to make sure I spell it right. One T, two N's. So already, that will already be helpful because before that we didn't even know which road it was. And now we could add this building. There's a more complex building shape. So if you're using JOSN, there is actually special tools designed so to minimize the number of keystrokes you have to do buildings. I can do two rectangles and then join them together really quickly, but for this, this is probably the most efficient. You see how I'm grabbing the nodes and creating this more complex. Now I want to square it up. Voila. Oh, but see, now I forgot to tag it. So it's giving me this issue. Area has no descriptive tags. And this is it really likes to know what things are. So I'm going to say that's a house. It looks like a house to me. Unless there's almost enough cars around it. It could be like a B&B or something. But you guys may know.
Not sure.
No.
And I'll add the driveway.
Oh, that is a house. I recognize that place.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. The house and driveway, and on here, I think we even can figure out what house number that is. Oh, might be tricky. Is it 3 or 11? Or is it one of those lots that he has both? So it's just off that corner. I would guess that's the other lot, isn't it? So
Yeah.
This is the first lot off of
13.
here. Yeah, that'd be 13, wouldn't it? So the address is 13, Montana Bay. Done.
While you're doing that, Sean, I've got a question here on chat, and the question is, what is the review process of data that does get entered by folks like us?
Okay, that's a good question. So there is a team of OpenStreetMap reviewers for Canada. A lot of it gets vetted automatically as you update. It'll give you errors and warnings, and those get flagged to reviewers. So if you're doing things and not making any errors, then it probably won't get flagged. But there is a possibility for users of OpenStreetMap to add a note, and those get checked by reviewers. So if there's an error or something going on in part of the map, people can add a note. And I've had reviewers come and check some of the stuff that I've been doing because there's a note, or if they see something that doesn't sort of fit with the model, they may contact you. And because everything that's updated is tagged to which user did it, they'll send you a note and say, noticed you did this here. Is that accurate? Like I tagged a whole bunch of chalets in Wasagning, for example, as rental cottages, and they were like, that's a big chunk of town. And that's the situation. So so that's how the reviewing process works. It's more experienced OpenStreetMap volunteers that they get kind of status as they've done more edits. So I hope someday to be in those ranks, probably getting close to the number of edits needed to be there, but I'm still learning some things like multi-polygons where you can do edges for, one of my dreams is to be able to pull in new forest cover from different areas and update all the lakes and things as well, because you'll notice depending on water levels, like you can see even along the lake, Sandy Lake here, it probably fluctuates a fair bit, especially I know on the north end where it's shallow. So deciding where exactly that line goes may be a matter of how much water you've had in a while. So did I answer the question, or did I go off into the weeds?
No, that's good.
All right, so I added my sources. I'm going to upload, and now we can find number 13, Matana Bay. Only many more 100 cottages to go along this area. Here you can see it's a little bit trickier because a lot of these cottages are under tree cover, but actually it's not too bad here. I was working around Ditch Lake, and it's a lot more challenging. They have a lot more big spruce trees, so this should be possible to do. And it may help you out. Like once I get into Jocelyn, I can do, and I wake up early on a weekend, and I could do, probably this whole cottage area in about 20 minutes or less. Like once you get into the groove and you get proficient at it, you can really cruise. All right, so that's ID. I think that gives you kind of a good starting point. And if you have any problems at all, give me a holler. I have these tools as well to, I can link in and see what you're looking at. And if you need to, or if you have a question about something, shoot me a message. And you can even shoot me a message through OpenStreetMap. There's a message system, and you can see who's mapping nearby, get in touch, and send me your questions. I'll talk a little bit about GPS traces. So we're talking about adding trails. So you can see the stuff that you've uploaded. So I pulled in some stuff for like all the park maintain trails, so I could update those years ago. And you can decide whether these traces are public or not. So a GPX file is straight off a GPS unit. You'll find it if you have a Garmin handheld, for example. You can save different trails into a GPX file and then load those in. So if I'm back into edit here, I'll show you where you can find those. If you go to background settings, down the bottom is GPS traces. So when you bring that in, it will show your GPS track, and then you can digitize along it. With Jocelyn, you can actually bring in the data and transfer it, but then you have to tag it in. So in this one, because they presume people are less adept at getting the data in, they prefer you trace over it so that it comes in clean. Because with the problem with GPS traces, sometimes you get little circular things going on, and that messes with routing and stuff. So if you stand in one location talking to your neighbor while you're digital trail, it can get a little bit messy at times. But so that's GPS traces. Yeah, I
Can
think
I
that's
ask you a lake question, Sean?
sure.
What technology would be available for bathymetric mapping of lakes?
Well, there's new depth finders now that are integrated with GPS. If somebody drives along a lake with it has like side sonar, if you will, and creates a moving map as you go over the lake. Clear Lake was just done last summer or 2 summers ago, and the technology has improved so much that I think they were able to do it the whole lake in like half a day, which is the last time we did the bathymetry. It took us 2 weeks and lots of staff time going along and getting soundings using it was just like a single point depth sounder. And this new one that they have is way more detailed because it does a whole swath as you go along.
Who does that, Sean? Does the park?
There's different companies, Hummingbird, Garmin has some. We actually, for smaller lakes, some technology we're using in the park is there's a sonar ball. It looks like a big fishing bobber, and you can actually cast it with a fishing rod for shallower lakes, and it will create an automatic map that you can upload into the cloud and then download as well. And it kind of keeps track of where it is. So you can cast it and drift it across, or hook it up to a kayak and then kayak around a shallower lake if you don't want to get your prop full of weeds. We use them a little bit, but not in as much detail yet.
So these are,
I guess the question I have is what would be the software you could use? As you mentioned there's cloud software that you can upload the data to
Yeah.
get your map.
Yeah, and then that program that Daryl was talking about would let you bring it in. You could even upload the contours. I haven't seen very many bathymetric maps in OpenStreetMap, but I imagine there are some, and you could load the bathymetric contours into here as well. Let's just see.
Good, thank you.
so these are
Lake
instruments
contour.
that are affordable that a group could buy.
Yeah, they're reasonably priced. Like the casting sonar ball was not expensive.
Are we talking 100, 500, 1,000 more?
It looks like about $300.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, see, Garmin now has something too. You can get it at Cabela's. So this is the fairly new technology. I don't know. We got this maybe a year or two ago. This one, particular one for the park, but yeah, this is amazing how it's improved in the last little while. So that's that way you can do that. I don't know where are we at for time.
Well,
If, you guys want to see the app at all?
Well, before we get into that, I think it's important to just review what a person needs to do to get onto OpenStreetMaps. I mean, they have to create an account.
Okay. Yep. So that's pretty straightforward. So if you Google OpenStreetMaps, it'll come up, and then there's a sign up feature. Oops, I'm already signed in. So let's just log out. So you just send your email and a confirmation, and it will send you an email, and then you're good to go, and you set up your password. and then you will be able to log in as I am. And then you're at the stage.
So now the next thing that a person probably wants to do is put the background in. So you can choose different satellite imagery.
That's right. So first you hit this edit. And yes, and actually, as you pointed out, you can edit with ID, which is this in-browser edition, which if you just hit edit, it will go to automatically. Or if you have a Java OpenStreetMap editor or any of these other editors, you can have it open first and then edit with that program, which is a little more detailed, but lets you bring in, let's say you had drone imagery of those cabins, you flew it and you stitched it together into a nice ortho photo that's more current than any background imagery, then you would use that program. But we're going to use ID. So I'll start editing. And by default, I think it might use Bing, which is the top imagery. So you'll probably see this. And it has this stamp. Sorry, I'm moving your guys' face around because yeah, so down on the bottom left here, it shows Bing as the imagery copyright by Microsoft. You can also choose from Esri, World Imagery. They have two different products. One's enhanced a little bit for clarity. Looks pretty reasonable too. You'll notice between the different imagery that there may be a shift, and that's important. You can actually set the offset if you know that, for example, the streets are quite accurate to any of your GPS tracks in the area, and you want to adjust the imagery, you can actually do an imagery offset. So you drag anywhere on here and oops, on here. And you can see I can drag the underlying imagery to match other data. I find that Maxar is, in places I've edited it around the world, seems to have the most accurate imagery at this point. Bing's not too bad. Some places it's worse than others. Google's actually not that great in a lot of places. They didn't have as much ground control. But Google doesn't have imagery in here. They don't. They're one of the few companies that haven't really got on to OpenStreetMap as much. Although they probably pull imagery or data from OpenStreetMap to update their proprietary stuff. Yeah, so this Maxar seems to be the cat's meow for, but there's other stuff in here too to check out. Oh, Stamen terrain. Maybe is there terrain data? That might be just for the US. Oh, no, there is terrain data. So, but it doesn't have. It kind of shows a shaded relief. I was thinking that might be handy for streams and stuff, but it's not what I was thinking. So yeah, you'll probably be using mostly Maxar. It's the detailed, it's sub-meter, like you can say, you can zoom in and see vehicles. So that's about as good as it gets for satellite imagery.
So when you say sub-meter, you mean that every dot that's in the image.
Yeah, so if I zoom really close, you can see that the image is composed of pixels of color. And so each pixel is less than a meter in size. The Manitoba Land Initiative buildings, they were using 1 meter or 2 meter imagery at the time. So each pixel it would be 2 meters wide. And so you could see a lot less detail in that type of imagery. So looking at this, I'd guess this is probably around 10 centimeter resolution imagery. With a drone, I can get down to 2 centimeter. So you could see what was in the back of that pickup truck, for example. Or maybe that's not a pickup. It kind of looks like a bed of a pickup there, doesn't it? Anyway. Yeah, so that's background imagery. And
okay, and
yeah, we talked about the different points and lines and areas, adding, we can add in another building just as a review. So this looks like a house here.
it is.
Yeah, you can see the shadow. So we'll add that house in. don't really see a driveway unless they have kind of like a grassy driveway. The Q key squares it up. You can see it square a little bit, or you can right click and go square. It's already more, you can't be more square than it already is. And I know from this map that that is what, block 10, municipal address 10. So I will, is that 10? Yeah, it must be 10. I can put the house number is 10 and the street as Montana Bay.
Can you use another background to search for the driveway, Sean?
Yeah, so let's say I looked here. This one's not, I can't seem to see a driveway there. So let's try Esri. Maybe it shows up on that one. Yeah, no, that's even blurrier. Let's try Bing. Yeah, it doesn't really look like they have a specific driveway unless it comes off of here and it's under the trees or something. But sometimes people leave just a grass driveway too. I don't know if it's just a cottage.
Yeah, I think it
Mine's
just,
a house.
It is a house, eh?
I think it comes off Montana Bay there.
Yeah,
On the north or
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, like in through here. So that's probably the vehicle there then.
No,
And
No,
no,
no.
up
The
top north of the house.
oh, just off of here.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay. All right. So we'll go back to Max over here.
That's where you have to have the ground truthing from the
Yeah.
local knowledge.
All right. So yeah. And as you're going by, then you'll be able to say for sure. And I'll just adjust that more to the center lines because I have a little bit of compulsive disorder that makes me want to do that stuff. All right. And then
So Sean, can we
remembering,
talk about usefulness of this database once it's all populated with all of the data you've got?
sure.
I'm still concerned about how you would use it to let emergency vehicles navigate to these sites. Should 911 get a call, you've got all of the detail of, say, the farm that you would be going to. Say a fire call came in, you'd know where the people were, you'd presumably know where the fuel storage was, you'd know where other hazards were related to a fire. But how do we get the fire truck there? And I know I asked this last time, but our connection failed a little bit and I didn't hear the full answer. And just what the next step is to linking this database to the emergency vehicles in the area.
Okay. So once the data is in here, anybody with a data connection, including on a phone, can go to OpenStreetMap and do a search. So let's see if it's already in the system. It might not. All right, so it's already found that location. So now what I can do, so I just did a search for that address. It came up and found it. It must be a unique address in the world. There must not be too many Montana Bays because usually it comes up with a long list, especially if you don't have a common, or if you have a common street name. So just like Google, I can go directions from here and I can say, let's say I'm Onanole Fire or just Onanole even. And I can choose, let's see if it picks Onanole. I think Onanole's fairly unique. Yeah. All right, so and I can choose by car, by bicycle, by foot, and it has two different routing algorithms, but essentially it gives me the optimum route. And so I can find out, and even instructions. And so it's going to take me a half hour to get there from the Onanole Hall. It's 32 kilometers. Is that the optimum routing? I might, well, I don't know if it's much faster to go off of 250, but yeah. And then I can decide, yeah, maybe that's not the best way because like we're going to continually have to evaluate whether if there's a bridge out but the nice thing with this is because OpenStreetMap can be updated by locals, if there is a bridge out on this route, then it will reroute me based on another system, right? So that's how we'd use it, John, to get the fire truck there.
That looks really good. And are you using it now? Or is any of the fire department or ambulances using this now?
Currently in our department, we have an app that's using a Google-based map. So, but yes, I have used this already now. Once we get all our data updated, this is what we'll be using because it's up to date and working. So there's no reason why we wouldn't. And especially now that we can see exactly where the driveway, I'm surprised it decided to go there and not using the driveway, but maybe it has it in here not to use the driveway, or maybe this driveway hasn't been updated in the routing algorithm yet, but.
Well, that's encouraging.
But you can see I just added number 10 and it's already in the system. So, and number 13. So we just did this tonight and already we can find another building in this RM. So everything that everybody does will help improve access to these various areas. And now that I've tracked down these atlases, which were current as of 2018, I'm not sure what RM McLean William has. They might have something similar. Especially if they've had a company go through and put all those rural addressing systems in. Even having all the road names on is quite handy. So I noticed that's one thing though we'll have to watch in OpenStreetMap is that we're doing them somewhat consistently. But yeah, what road was that? This one doesn't have the name yet. .105 north. Oh, the other thing, if this is part of the same road and you want to join them together, you can hold shift and select both of them and merge them together. That's sometimes handy so that you're not having to name it all the way along. Wonder if it should put road 105 north. I've just been putting 105 space north, but I guess the official name is road 105 north. Something you guys can decide with your RM. Did that answer your question, John?
Yeah, very good. Thanks.
I think one of the other advantages of this is you can put all of the information in, for example, where the fuel is stored on a farm and other important things that you wouldn't necessarily have access to if it was a different mapping system.
Yeah, I like how complete it could be. And even I was mapping in Nepal and the mappers there have gotten very detailed. Where they even have like agricultural land delineated and the forest land and pasture land. So types without even having to look at the imagery, although we still have the imagery. So I guess it depends how recent it is. And, but yeah, having all these tools available to us now, because that's the other thing we have. Is that now if we get a wildfire in an area, we'll be able to see what's in kind of quickly and how to best get at it. The other thing I have been adding are things like these the tractor trails, or I call them, they're labeled as tracks. So it's like agricultural access points, if you will. Actually, this looks like a drainage, but if you see some of them where access point between, there's more up towards the north here where there aren't as many roads, but more interconnected fields with bush.
Yeah,
that's quite helpful for us.
If you look at the farmyard just to the left there, no, I think I'm in the wrong place. No, that's the right place. 107 north? If you go along there, there's a couple of things, right, where you've, well, there's a ditch, I guess you might say, in the land, just where this, no.
Now I'm going too far north.
Yeah, you're too far north.
107,
107.
go along 107.
Oh, okay. Go east here.
No, you're right now. Stop.
Okay.
Okay, so on 107 north, that road, that passes through Colin
Lewandowski.
Colin Lewandowski's land. That's his farm. Well, that's his yard, and he's got a bunch of stuff there. Now, if you go to the right, go east a little bit, you'll see what looks like a path for water to take that goes down into Sandy Lake. Sandy Lake, yeah, that right there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How would you want to mark something like that? Not that one.
I think that isn't.
That's already.
Oh, okay.
To south, a bit south of your cursor now, along the road to the left.
Along the road to the
I think what he's referring to, Sean, they're basically drains is what they are. Some of them have been enhanced, some of them are natural, but they're just a runway that catches rain events, and then there's no more runoff.
Yeah, you could add them as intermittent streams. So some of these drains like this, is that what you mean?
No, south of the road, just south of the road and to the west.
Oh, down here.
No, to the west more.
Oh, over here.
That's right. That's the one. Yeah.
Yeah. I'd call that an intermittent stream. It might have water in it when it's running.
Okay.
It goes into the lake
Another
there.
thing I was thinking about, Sean, is that, in terms of wildfires or whatever, if somebody's reporting it and they say they give the land description, like say 33-19-20 west or something, is that information on this map, or could it be put on the map if there's no buildings around this area, like residences or whatever that are in the system? Is how would they report it if somebody was
Okay, yeah. So in that case, no. To answer your first question, no. The legal land descriptions aren't in here. I'm not sure how you'd even I guess you could have the boundaries of the section put in. I do have a grid fabric that I could drop over it and add it, but I haven't seen that put in OpenStreetMap in other places. And for us, it's legal land descriptions aren't terribly helpful to try to find a location because they describe a pretty big area.
right?
So if somebody wanted to say there was a wildfire, they're almost better off giving, I wonder, if they right click on this map at a specific location, it will give them this coordinate that they can just send to us.
No,
And so-
I'm just thinking if somebody calls in and says such and such a legal description of land is on fire, or how do they describe it when they send it in for a wildfire? Like how do you locate that area to drive to it?
Right. They may give in reference to a civic address. So they'll say north, because usually they're calling from their residence, and they'll say, I see a fire east of us on the next corridor. I'm at this and this location. I do have an atlas in the vehicles with the legal land descriptions, so we can track them down. We have received them in that format. It takes us longer, quite honestly, though, to use them, because they're less logical, and our younger members may not be as exposed to them. You're getting fewer and fewer rural people that understand the 6x6 grid in the township, and the number ordering, and yeah.
If I can make a comment here, we're missing an important piece of information. Most people, when they got a fire, they won't phone the fire department. Now you call 911. 911 will tell you where the fire is. Let's say if I've got a fire in my yard, all I have to do is say my name. Right away, they'll say you're located on, they'll give you the civic addressing. They'll give you the town, the section or quarter number. They've got all that there. So that eliminates a lot of what we've been talking about. We don't need to look at this. The fire department maybe wants to look at it as they're going out to the location. But no, yeah, you're not calling the fire department, you're calling 911. They've got loads of information there on everybody's sites. I don't know about so much, that's part of the problem. The resorts are so congested that it's maybe a little tougher, but in the rural areas, it's actually quite easy.
Oh, okay. Well, that's not been my experience with 911 in terms of like we do get the name, and we have had some location details, but it's sketchy. So.
Oh yeah, I've read this over and over again. Although some of the problem, and like there's been a few people said you could write a book on the errors 911 has made over the years, and I don't want, quite frankly, here. My brother-in-law lives between Shoal Lake and Birtle, and when he called the fire department, they sent trucks out in the Erickson and Sandy Lake area, and more so Erickson, and actually the person on 911 when the fire was reported in the RM of Birtle, this gal says, "Where the hell's the RM of Birtle?" Now that gal should have been off her job right away. You know, you don't need stuff like that. And yeah, the cops called back later and wanted to know, well, we're up here around Erickson, I don't know, looking for your property. So there is, hopefully that's been corrected over the past few years, but just the horror stories were just tremendous between the local departments, and ambulance was no different. Ambulance is the same thing.
Yeah. Well, and that's why having this common data model would be quite helpful for so many different applications. So whether it's an ambulance or
something else, Sean, you had mentioned earlier on about culvert inventory. The conservation district or the watershed district has done for, I think, the last 3 years, and I'm sure Harrison Park is included in that. They've taken a culvert inventory throughout the municipalities. And last year, I think in 2019, 2020, and they had a little bit more to do, but the outfit was hired to do LiDAR for the whole central western part of the province here. So we've got topography readings that are available too.
Yeah, they started flying last fall. They did the park first, and then they started on Assiniboine West. I was watching their plane last fall. They should be back here this spring to finish that off.
They're supposed to finish it off, yeah.
So yeah, no, it's quite helpful information.
LiDAR data isn't, you can't transfer that onto the open street map though, can you?
No, not directly. It usually comes out, well, there's lots of different formats for it, but usually it lets you see everything in 3D. So there's two different kind of models. There's a digital elevation model that kind of takes all the trees and buildings and objects off and lets you just see how things would flow on the ground, more or less. It's not the greatest at picking out culverts. That's why culvert inventories are handy, to be able to kind of etch those in. but using LiDAR, I could take it in a program and then model where the water, when it lands on the ground, would go, and create stream networks out of it. And it works in the park. It worked pretty well, and we had it. So you had elevation every meter across the whole area. So yeah, it's pretty powerful and amazing tool for sure. But having this local knowledge and this combination. So once I got the stream network out, I could put it into OpenStreetMap. In fact, I did do a section up in the park where I was playing with our new LiDAR, and I burned in a stream network. And so then I updated the OSM data with the new streams that were much more detailed. You could see every little corner in the stream, for example, which would take you a long time to go through and digitize from imagery, if you could see it all, because a lot of streams will go through. Well, hopefully, if they have a nice riparian buffer on them, they'll be really hard to see. So, but the LiDAR flowing in the spring and fall kind of penetrates through the leaf cover, and it should give you an idea of what the ground looks like. So,
yeah, regarding the LiDAR data in our area south of the park, the Assiniboine West Watershed District hasn't received it yet. They're expecting it in another couple of months, and we're sort of working with them on this wetland project on Sandy Lake Golf Course. Also, Merv mentioned that they'll give you an address when you dial 911, but they don't give you the routing information, which the maps, this kind of map will. And if we've got all the roads done up properly, you should be able to get routed with a better route than you would if you were just looking at the address itself.
Yeah, most of the fire departments, I think, at least the ones I'm familiar with, the fellows are familiar with the civil addressing, the way that's used. So quite a few of them know how to direct themselves to the address.
yeah, we had a good discussion about this the other night, because I think Ron was on here as well. That oh, sorry. Yeah, that we do have members that are quite familiar. Like we have a couple contractors on our department who know and probably have built most of the houses in our area, response area. But if we get new members that aren't as familiar with the area, and that's happening with some of our new volunteers, then we don't have that innate local knowledge. So this is a better long-term record, updated by the people that are probably most knowledgeable about those areas. So
It looks to me like once this is set up, it would be good to have some local knowledge proofing of what of the work that's done to double check it. I'm not sure, like going forward, I'm not, as you progress, possibly there could be summer students or something like that that are hired in the municipalities that would do a lot of this proofing, just to make sure that everything's updated and correct and according to the GPS. And I'm thinking, with Ditch Lake, we have some folks here from Ditch Lake that I'm not sure if you're working with anybody there, but there's a lot of buildings out that way, isn't there? And on Sand Lake there and so on.
So I'm going to show you a mobile app that lets you update OpenStreetMap. I'm going to mute. Okay. All right. So by default, it comes up. If you want to center it where you are, you can just hit this arrow up here and it will find your location. So here I am at home. If you give it a minute, it gives you a little circle kind of giving you your accuracy. And it also will tilt the direction that you're looking at or pointing your phone at, so you can get an idea. I'm inside and it's actually doing not too bad because that's my house right there. So it'll pop around. It does better when you're outside. So if you're going around, you can do a 2-finger pinch or opening wide to zoom. You can touch on the edge of a building to select it. Here you can see what type it is. You got to be careful because if you grab it here, you can actually move it around by the tag. It'll ask you if you want to move it because people must do that frequently. You can see right at the top, I'm using Bing Maps. So if you want to change maps, you can do that here, I believe. Yeah, so I'm on Bing Aerial. So if I want Maxar, I can switch to Maxar.
There's no cursor on your phone, so it's hard for us to tell what button you're hitting.
Yeah, actually the cursor is in the middle there. So yeah, oh, the button, yeah, the button I hit was just above the plus there, the little paper looking thing to bring that up. There's some other options you can do for your display there. Let's see. So if I want to update tags or add a building number, if I click on the house down at the bottom, it'll say tags, and it'll come up with the common tags there. So you can see the house number and the street. That's probably all you really need. It'll figure out the closest town and everything based on your location. So as I'm going along and I see building that I want to update, then I can just tag it. This is kind of how you can see how quick this is moving on my screen too. We get 2 screens. I'll show you digitizing, but it's not the easiest thing to do. Let's go to an area where we're working here in Sandy Lake. Where am I? Too far over? There you go. Oh, look, there's the data that I just added before with the other system. So let's say I want to add this building here. So I can zoom in and I line up the middle cursor with the edge of the building, and then pushing on the plus, the circle plus sign on the right there, it'll add a new node or object. If it's just a single point, then I can tag it. But in this case, it's an area. So I want to create another node over here. And then I'm just dragging the screen so it moves the cursor over, and I can hit plus again for another node and plus again, and then finish it off. Sometimes it figures out that it should join that back together, but you can see if I grab the little gray tab, I can move the node around. And as I reconnect with the last node, you see a little circle there, so it will join it up. And I can make it rectangular using the more option down on the bottom. And then I can go tag, and we can call that a house. And I know the street there is Montana Bay. I'll have to check the house number. But so once I'm done, I can upload my, oh, here I can add the driveway too. So in this case, I'll start here and click to the driveway. I want to make sure it snaps to that road. So I'm going to make sure it does. And then I'm going to tag that as a driveway. So
Sorry to interrupt, Tom, but can I ask what app you're using?
it's called Go Map.
Go-
It's on iOS. There are some Android apps for editing OpenStreetMap. I haven't used any of them, so I'm just use this on an iPad and a phone, and it works really well. So when I'm biking around bird watching, I've been putting in civic addresses as I go by places, and if there's new buildings that aren't even on the imagery, I can usually estimate where they are and add them in live. And so once I've finished my edit, I can hit the load to cloud. Oh, there's an undo and redo at the bottom right there as well. But right in the bottom right corner is upload your changes. So this looks familiar. I'm already signed in, but you would sign in with the same OpenStreetMap user thing that you set up with the ID editor.
Okay, thanks.
And I'll just call it Sandy Lake. Oops. Local knowledge maxr, and then I hit commit up in the top right. And now that data is uploaded. So
Okay, one thing, Randy, if you're looking for that app, it is Go space map exclamation exclamation. There's 2 or 3 different ones.
yeah, that's it there. That's the icon it looks like there. So that's pretty handy because you can have all that background imagery too from all those different sources, even if you're not editing. So yeah, that's the app, and so it's fairly intuitive, I guess. Maybe a little more complicated. Depends if you're mobile, you're more comfortable in a mobile environment or a computer environment on which tool you'd use. But my son and wife were using that app to update the numbers in Ericsson off the houses during their break. So using an iPad tethered to a phone. So it's pretty straightforward. You don't want to, I wouldn't recommend it for adding a lot of buildings in. If you were going to do that, I would use a computer. But if you're just tagging addresses, that's the cat's meow for sure. Especially if you're driving around doing it, because it'll track where you are, and then you'll know exactly what you're looking at.
Thank you very much, Sean. That was excellent. We'll have to keep working on that. I'm sure Daryl's interested in doing work around Sandy Lake there, and I guess the people around Ditch Lake there might want to get in touch with you to use their traditional knowledge. Good evening, everyone, and thank you very much for joining us. All the best and keep safe. Good night.